Okay, in this video we're going to talk about a few things and do a video walkthrough of LC, a ticker that has basically netted us a fairly good return. What I wanted to highlight in this video are the edges that we look for in the markets. How did it get into our universe of stocks? And after that, what are the entry tactics that we employed to sort of get a winner in the markets? So one of the first things that we do with these video walkthroughs is how does this stock come into our universe of stocks? So our universe is made up of the IPO watch list, the Gappers watch list, and the HTF watch list. Each of these key watch lists, if you haven't watched that video already, on the education page, I encourage you to go under basics, click key watch list on the education page, and watch that video where I go over these particular key watch lists. So these tune into market structure, and every time we're tuning into market structure, that's always a big positive because it's going to net us a big return in the markets. So with LC, what we see is we see this big volume candle, and this big volume candle was north of 40 million. And what makes this candle special is it was the highest volume in over a year, and the stock was basically gapping up in a big way as well. So that tells us that the street was caught off guard. And the third part of this recipe is the fact that we get a high daily closing range. That shows us that buyers on this particular day, right? Buyers on this particular day were, they won the session. And that's what makes this chart sort of special and makes it stick out. So with respect to the edges in the market, the edge is very clear. This is the highest volume in over a year, and we call this HV1, so highest volume in 1 year, right? We call that HV1. And then after that, the sort of step, this is our step 1 in anything that we're doing. We look for an edge, and this is our step 2. We're looking for now an entry tactic after we see the signature with high daily closing range in this particular chart. So the next thing I want to point out is the HVC area. So the HVC area is an entry tactic that we employ. HVC, this is the high volume close. How we label that in the markets is we take the close of this high volume bar and we draw a line across, and that becomes a level of interest for us in the markets. Given the gap up that we saw, and this company was sort of part of the larger theme in the markets as well, with UPST leading and was a sort of a market leader. This name sort of falls into that same space. I'm not really the biggest on the stories and things of that nature, but all I did, gather from the situation was this was very similar to what UPST has been trying to do. So HVC, 40 million in volume, highest volume in over a year, and this guy is going to make our universe of stocks within the Gappers watch list because it meets that particular criteria. Once we have it on our watch list, now we're looking for entry tactics, which is step 2 of sort of what we try to do in the markets. And HVC would be the first entry tactic that we look for. In this particular case, there are 2 entry tactics that come to mind that we have studied and are confident in. One of them is HVC. The other one is HVC plus a whole number or the nearest whole number that the stock's trading at. So the closing range on this was about 24. So that 23 spot is going to be of interest, and that 24 spot is also going to be of interest. So that is how you sort of enter this name. You have to check, you sort of see the action. Maybe the stock comes back into this HVC area. We even undercut the HVC and then close back above it, and it doesn't really look back thereafter. As we sort of get this run in the stock, there are a few areas of interest that I do want to point out. So I've made quite a mess, but hopefully it all makes sense. Is the fact that this particular area where the market is coming in and the stock is also coming in. So let me erase a few things to make it a little less confusing. So the stock was trading right around that 30 spot, and it runs into sort of its initial run from this 23, 24 to 30. That's a fairly good run for this particular name. The market comes in, the stock also comes in, and this is where our whole number edge is on display. The whole number edge being the stock comes back into this 25 level. It respects that 25 level, and most importantly, it responds to that 25 level. So there's a big response to this 25 level where it's coming up off of lows and closing up on the session. So this whole number respect for 25 as the market pulls in, that's another entry tactic that we could have employed on this particular name later on in its run. And if you remember, this is how I tackled, I sort of entered this name right around here. We got a rally up. I sold into this particular day as being my exit, and then I remounted this name right into 25s, and then we got a run up into it, up and out, and then I ended up selling the name back here. So that was another pretty good return on this trade. And then now we get this third entry area that this name provided that was really clear as day, was the fact that the market was in correction. So this gray dotted line is the market is in correction, right? But the stock's RS line, so this RS line, is fairly steady on the name. And the fact that it held 25 during the entire correction, during the entire market correction, that's a big tell. So that goes under the edges. So the edge on this, because relative strength is an edge, market's coming in, the stock doesn't want to come in, that's RS. It builds out a RS zone. That's in addition to the HV1 edge we already have on this name. And then the entry tactic we would employ is the fact that it's holding this whole number level of 25 while the market remained in correction. The name, as the market lifts, so pressure comes off of the general markets, the name starts to make progress to the upside. Very logical action with how the stock has functioned throughout its run. It sort of fits, the system that we have in place really, really well. So you could have entered or accumulated stock right around this area, or waited for the market to go back into an uptrend, which we did, and then we got another entry tactic right around here, right? We get this stock uppercut. We get an uppercut of 30. Then we hold 30 and we hold 30 these 2 days. That's where I built my positioning in this name, and then we get a rally up and out. So that would be another entry tactic. Later on in its run, we got the uppercut, hold, and hold. of $30, and then we go up and out. Now I do want to sort of cover the situation on this particular bar, and what I wanted to share in this video was also a stat that every time a stock has a gap up with 40 million, and this is its first initial gap up with such volume, and that volume is the highest in over a year, the probabilities of it doing a second gap up in the markets are about, greater than 80%, or 80% of high or higher on its next, especially when the market is in an uptrend. So that is a stat that I've sort of it sort of came in after I did a study on this particular stock, these gap ups in the market, and that's something I went back. I've only gone back about 7.5 years so far to sort of come up with this stat, but I plan on going even 10, 15, 20 years as I do this study on the side. So every time a stock has its initial gap up on 40 million volume, that's pretty good dollar volume as well. The probabilities of it gapping up on its next earnings cycle, especially when the market's in an uptrend, are about 80%. Now, if you bought the stock at this level and you were getting, you basically were, say you were positioned at this 35 level and the stock closed at 31, please do not sit there and say that Ray said the probabilities of it gapping up are high, so I'll sort of see what it does into earnings. That does not mean that you could forget risk management that in the markets. It does not mean you could be holding something that you're down big on into earnings. With this particular stock, what I did was I had positioning around the 30 mark. It came back in and it closed at about 31.28. After hours, I was basically prepared to cut stock at my price, my average price, if it did come in. It was just fortunate that it didn't. It reported a positive earnings, and then that stat that we came up with, the greater than 80% stat after this initial gap up, it happened to do that. So this sort of position that I had at 30 worked out quite well for me. So these are some of the things that I wanted to share about LC. We highlighted a few things on this, the edges that we have on this particular name, the entry tactics as the name sort of figures it out, the HVC, the whole number, the uppercut, hold and hold of 30. There are many different ways we build out a RS zone. So things that give us edges, give us how does it make our universe? They give us an edge in the markets. That's what we're always trying to do, is we have to exploit our edges. We have to find entry tactics where we can manage risk, and then we can extract a big return from these names in the market. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and I would be happy to answer them. You could also ask them on the forum. You could ask them on Twitter, wherever the case, wherever you feel it's best to be asking questions. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you guys in the next video.